On today's episode, we're sitting down with Brittany Welch, a perinatal mental health advocate whose lived experience fuels her to help others in her community. We'll hear about shame, guilt, an inpatient stay, navigating a medically traumatic birth experience, and the power of peer support. Brittany is not only a Climb Out of the Darkness leader, but she is one of the newest members of the PSI California State Chapter, connecting all California climb leaders, spreading awareness about PSI's resources, and building community along the way. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the I Am One podcast are the speaker's own. Tuning into this podcast is not a replacement for therapy or any other form of professional help. Our discussions cover personal stories of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and may feel triggering to some listeners. Your number one priority is to take care of yourself. So if you are in need of help, please reach out to the PSI helpline by calling or texting HELP to 1-800-944-4773 for help in English and in Spanish. At PSI, we want you to know you are not alone, you are not to blame, and with help, you will be well. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. Brittany, welcome to the podcast studio for the second time. We're so happy that you were able to and willing to re-record with us. We can't wait to talk all about your experience. And if you wouldn't mind, would you please give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are?
Yeah, I'm Brittany. I'm a former education specialist. I am a volunteer with Postpartum Support International as the local Climb Out of the Darkness leader, and I am on the board of directors for PSI California. And I'm a survivor of postpartum PTSD and severe depression and anxiety.
Well, Brittany, could you tell us a little bit about how perinatal mood and anxiety disorders have played a role in your life? You kind of have already touched on it, but let's hear a little bit more.
Yeah. It's a wild ride. We've done it before, and I'm doing it again.
My seatbelt's buckled. I'm ready.
Excellent. So my husband and I knew we wanted kids right away. We were like, yeah, we want kids, but let's wait a few years. We waited a year, but whatever, that's fine. And we started trying to have a kid, and it took us 9 months to get pregnant, which is actually pretty typical because it was 6 cycles for me. I have very long, weird cycles that are about 39 to 41 days on average, which it does make a difference to know that right now, because at 9 months, I stopped having a period and we weren't sure what was going on. And I didn't test positive. I took multiple pregnancy tests, didn't test positive until day 71.
Whoa.
Because I was having cramps and I was really fatigued, and I have a history of cysts bursting in my ovaries. So I was like, I got to go to urgent care. I got to go see what's going on because I'm still getting negative pregnancy tests. So it's obviously not that, duh. But of course, as soon as I get there and they take a pregnancy test, it's positive, which is like, oh, okay, great. All right, day 71. It only took forever and a day. And that day was the start of my perinatal mood and anxiety disorder because
Cool.
I left urgent care and called my husband, and his response was a beautiful 4-letter word.
Oh, that's what my husband said when I told him that we were pregnant.
Yes.
Even though you were trying, it was not the reaction you were expecting.
Right.
At all.
Man, that was hard to hear. Because especially around that time, that was when you started seeing more pregnancy reveal videos on the internet. And there was this, we're not going to get that beautiful moment at all. We did end up getting a little bit of a moment because we told my mother-in-law on Mother's Day, which was 5 days later. So we did video that, which was fun. And our families were all like, it's so early. Why are you telling us? So there was a lot of shame and feeling like nobody's excited. What's going on? Which everyone did come around and got really excited for us eventually. But so already I was feeling this warning lights. What's going on? And then the nausea started kicking in, which granted, that's pretty typical.
Still not fun though.
It's still not fun. Right. Right away, I was like, get me on some anti-nausea meds because I still have to teach. I still have to function. I can't do this. So I started the medications. And then a few weeks later, we went on a trip up to the mountains into the high Sierras to go camping. for Father's Day weekend. And I had a subchorionic hemorrhage while we were up there, which is where the placenta like partially detaches and you bleed. And we had no idea, is this a miscarriage? Is something happening? Because we're up in the high Sierras and like the closest phone is a payphone 10 miles down the road. And so my husband went down and like called the doctor for me. And we were told as long as I stop bleeding and I'm feeling okay, we can continue our trip, which was to Disneyland for the rest of the week.
Isn't that the happiest place on earth?
I was just going to say that probably did not feel like the happiest place on earth.
No. And it was our second anniversary and we had been planning this trip for a while thinking like, oh, we're not going to be pregnant. I'm like, nothing's going to be happening. So I'm still avoiding all the like roller coasters and I'm thinking we lost the baby.
All the best parts.
Right. And I'm sitting there waiting for him as he rides all the roller coasters and it's deathly hot outside and really gross. And that's when there was all this grief I felt in the middle of the happiest place on earth and all this shame thinking like, oh, it was because I went on a hike that day or it's because I'm taking anti-nausea meds.
You were thinking it was something that you had done.
Right. I had thoughts of like, I climbed a rock and went fishing on the day that the SCH happened. So obviously I did something wrong. I'm going to clarify that right now. I did nothing wrong. There are reasons for why that happened to me. And it wasn't anything I did. We did come home from Disneyland and went straight to the doctor for an ultrasound and totally expecting to be told like, yeah, you need a DNC, all this kind of stuff. But no, there was a little heartbeat there. But next to that little 4-centimeter baby was a 4-centimeter blood clot, which was going to cause a lot of issues the rest of the pregnancy. Thankfully, it stopped growing at some point, but that did cause some growth issues for my son. So again, I'm feeling all this guilt and shame. I did something wrong. Now I have to be super like careful. And that's when my depression really started and kicked in. And I remember not being able to get off the couch one morning and just crying on the couch. And I'm a very open and honest person. So I posted about it on Facebook about I'm struggling right now. Hadn't announced my pregnancy yet, but I'm struggling right now. And one of the people who knew that I was pregnant contacted me and she's like, I think you're suffering with antenatal depression. I think you should get some help. And I was like, nah, I'm fine. I wasn't, but I kind of went through the next 6 months just thinking like, I can handle this. I mean, I was going to the doctor every 2 weeks to get extra ultrasounds to make sure baby was okay. We found out that I have a bicornuate uterus, which means that there's 2 sides, 2 halves, and it's kind of shaped like a heart, which is not typical. And my son's placenta was at the top of the heart. So it had attached right there, which had caused the subchorionic hemorrhage in the sense that it had slightly detached as it was growing. It's hard to explain because I'm not a medical professional, but that was my understanding of it. There's nothing I could do about that. It's how my body was formed when I was 11 weeks old in my mom's stomach.
Yeah.
And here I am at 11 weeks pregnant and bleeding because of it, which again, my mom did nothing to cause it. It's a deformity that just happens sometimes. And it has caused other issues in my life, which I'll get into later. But yeah, so nothing I did. I didn't do anything. But at the time, we didn't know that I didn't do all the research to figure this out, that it wasn't me. So I was depressed. And I was also feeling guilty for being depressed because I'm pregnant. I'm supposed to be excited and happy and glowing and beautiful and like nesting and all this kind of stuff. And it was like not happening. I was throwing up all the time and sleeping all the time. And then when I wasn't sleeping, I was just laying in bed, doing nothing, playing games on my phone. At 6 months pregnant, I was, it was the fall. It was October and I was teaching. And as an ed specialist, I had some behaviorally challenged students in my class who were going through some difficult times themselves, a lot of turmoil in their life. And while I knew that my student was never going to attack me, he was attacking other people in my classroom, which was putting a lot of stress on me. I knew he wasn't going to attack me because he had a family member who was pregnant. He very much understood pregnancy there. But because he was attacking other people, I was having all this stress. And I ended up being put on leave for 3 weeks because of my depression. And
did you ask for that?
I did. I went to the doctor and was like, I'm struggling, like I'm crying. Every time kids are at recess or lunch, I'm just crying. Like I can't stop crying. So they took me off for 3 weeks and put me on Zoloft. And that was my first foray into psychiatric medication.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so convinced before that, I've had depression episodes before. I was so convinced I can muscle through this and I can do it. And I couldn't. I did not have that ability because there was major chemical imbalances in my body at the time. Pregnancy and my body do not get along. It was really rough. And they put in a referral for the psych RN who was trained in perinatal mood disorders, but she wasn't available for 6 months with an open appointment. So I kept seeing my OBGYN for the medication and I found a therapist. But again, he wasn't trained as a perinatal mood therapist. And I had no idea about PSI at the time. I didn't know how to find anything specific.
Or what to call it necessarily. You knew that you were depressed.
And I was being told postpartum depression is a thing. And I'm over here what about antenatal depression? Because I've never heard of this. I feel like I'm oddball.
Right.
I don't know anyone else who's ever gone through this, which is kind of horrifying. And then I was also terrified that it would get worse after I had the baby. So I kind of muscled through those last, what I thought was going to be 2 months, but ended up being a month and a half, 1 month. Because when I was 35 weeks pregnant, I started having severe migraines and headaches and severe stomach pains. And I thought, oh man, I'm just I'm crazy. I'm having all these symptoms and I'm just supposed to push through it. And I ended up having one of my appointments with my OBGYN during this episode. And I always had my appointments at 6:30 in the morning. So then I could go get Starbucks and get breakfast and do my makeup in the car and go to work. So I wouldn't have to take time off work. So I could actually have some money after and some time after.
Yes.
Because family leave is basically
not what it should be.
Yeah.
Right. I was paying for my substitute when I was on maternity leave. So I need to make sure that that's clear.
Wow.
When I did go on maternity leave, I was paying. I was not getting a paycheck. My paycheck was paying for a substitute. So that was rough.
Holy cow.
But ended up at the doctor, and I remember the nurse taking my blood pressure and then taking it again and then taking it again and then getting a different machine and taking it again and then getting a handheld one and taking it again. And I was like, what is happening? What is going on? My blood pressure was 170 over 107, which is really high for someone who's usually 110 over 60. And my OBGYN was a very happy-go-lucky lady and still walked into the room with a smile and just said, so you need to go over to L&D right now at the hospital and letting them know you're coming because your blood pressure is really high. We're going to try and get it down so we can send you home for a few more weeks. And that's not what happened.
Oh.
So I had these huge expectations of I'm going to go into the hospital. They're going to get my blood pressure down. And I'm going to go home. Not at all what happened. I was put on bed rest at the hospital for 3 days. I was put on labetalol, and then they pushed IV meds every now and then when my blood pressure kept spiking. I think the highest it got was 180 over 120 at one point, which was kind of terrifying. I remember getting no sleep because there was the Wi-Fi box above my head with a little blue light.
Oh, dang it.
The monitor for they had my blood pressure cuff on and the baby monitor on 24/7. And the screen was just super bright. So I got no sleep, which was awful. I mean, they tell you sleep as much as you can before having the baby. Yeah, that wasn't happening at all.
That really complicates things, doesn't it?
Yes, having zero sleep. And then the OB still talking well, we're going to try and get you home. And the nurses were like, that's not happening. One of my main nurses was actually a friend of mine. And she's like, Brittany, I don't think you understand what's going on. You're not going home without a baby. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you're not leaving here until that baby is out of you at this point. It's not happening. And I think that was the hardest part, was to hear my nurse had to say that. And my doctor wasn't being honest with me about what was actually happening. They didn't use the word preeclampsia. They didn't explain it. I was looking at test results on my phone because we get my Health Online stuff. And I was doing research on my own. I'm like, what is this? What's going on? I don't understand. What did I do to cause this? Again, what did I do to cause this? Which is not a fair thing for me to be feeling over and over again. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of skip over the super detailed parts of my labor and delivery, because I've been doing some soul searching lately, and it's been you know what? I don't need to share every little detail. I can share that it was extremely traumatic. that I was on some pretty heavy medications that made me feel like I was a zombie giving birth. And birth wasn't necessarily like painful. I don't remember it being painful. What I do remember is it being this very dysphoric experience, like watching myself give birth, floating in the room above myself. Wow. And there was a lot of lack of communication through my labor, which was 48 hours of labor, induced, in bed, not allowed to walk around at all during it. So there was a lot of like not really being communicated with. And the few nurses that I really, really liked, like I think all my nurses were great. They were only there for like one session or one
like shift.
One shift. Yeah.
Right.
So that was really tough. I have recently been connected with some like L&D nurses on TikTok and watching their videos and recognizing that there was some, I wouldn't say malpractice, but probably not healthy ways of communicating with my medical team, that they weren't having open communication with me when things were starting to go south, because my mom knew something was going south, but they weren't giving her details, but she could tell like, something's happening, but I'm in la la land suffering and can't tell what's going on around me. But looking back and talking to my mom and my husband, they could see like, there's something going on.
Like all of a sudden people were moving around the room more quickly, like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. And my mom remembers the words OR and possible C-section and already like, but not communicating that with me at all. So that was kind of difficult to hear later on. And I didn't hear these details until about 2 years after, because we just couldn't talk about it. But labor was 48 hours and I had an epidural, which I didn't want. I was induced, which I didn't want. I had to lay in the bed, which I didn't want. And they had to use a vacuum, which I didn't want. And I tore, all this kind of stuff. They ended up taking the baby away. I got to hold him for like 5 seconds, but he wasn't moving. His Apgar score was like 3, which is
very low.
So they took him away right away. And I just remember laying in that hospital bed and being alone because my husband went with the baby. And I got stitched up and the doctor left after I'm stitched up. I don't even remember him talking to me. He was just gone. My nurse was just cleaning things up and walking in and out. My mom went to the bathroom at one point and I'm just sitting there by myself like, what in the world just happened?
Right.
What is going on? Where is my baby? Where is my husband? What just happened? I have no idea what just happened.
Mm-hmm. It was like they had a huddle and then they went ready, break, and all walked away from you. Yes. Right? Like you're like, hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay. So eventually that night, I got moved to recovery and I just remember being so tired. Like I couldn't keep my eyes open. My words were slurring, but I kept asking my nurse, can I see my baby? I want to see my baby. Please take me to see my baby. She was like incredulous. Like, why would you ask that? You're so sick. You need to recover. And I'm over here like, you took my baby away from me. Like but I need my baby.
Yeah.
So I did meet my baby. We're going to call him Ginger because he's a ginger. He's a little spitfire now. He's living up to all the drama. I got to meet him about 17 hours after birth. And in that moment, that was when I was like, I have to be the perfect mom. I have to do everything perfect. And started like pumping when they told me to pump, which is really tough to pump before you even meet your baby. And like pump before you even breastfeed, pump before you even like know, like I wasn't ready. I was 5 weeks early.
5 weeks early, first time mom.
Right.
Never done this before.
No. And I was like, I was going to take a class in that last month and like learn a little bit more about breastfeeding. So I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
But I do remember the nurses were super positive when my colostrum came in and I'm like, that's like nothing. And they're like, this is amazing. And I'm like, okay, weirdos.
Like, I'm feeling a little hyped. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Admittedly, I kind of needed some hype nurses and you are absolutely nailing it.
Yes. So I did have a few of those, which was really nice.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, man. That was still really rough.
Yeah.
So I went home, 2 days later and Ginger did not. He had to stick around because he had stopped breathing a couple times and his blood sugar got down to, I've done the research recently because I can access all the records. His blood sugar got down to basically 0 to the point where they could not detect blood sugar.
Oh.
So I don't know like what that number really was, but the test results say 0/undetected. And I'm like, oh, that's bad. So poor thing. He had a lot of traumas himself.
How long was he in the hospital after you left?
Yeah, he was in the hospital for a week. And I actually was rehospitalized with sepsis a few days later. Yeah, so that was rough. I was only there for 24 hours, which was nice. Pumped up with some meds real fast, and they caught it really early. But I remember sitting in the ER just crying, sobbing, because I was 5 days postpartum, and they blew a vein when taking my blood and all this kind of stuff. And I was just in pain. And my baby's in the NICU, and I'm in the ER. And then they send me 5 flights up to the top of the hospital where I'm far, far away from my baby again. And that was really, again, traumatic. But so I'm here, like, we're finally home. A week later, it was Christmas.
Oh, dang it.
Which was like, okay, here we are, like, not expecting to have a baby by Christmas. And I know most moms are terrified to take their kids out in public right away. And me, I was like, get me out of the house. Like, I'm not supposed to have a baby right now. I need to be around people. So right away, we were at church. And I remember someone coming up and saying, well, at least you guys are healthy now. And I wanted to punch them in the face.
Yeah. Please do not dismiss experiences like that.
Yeah.
Friends, gentle listeners.
Word to the wise. If you're thinking about starting a sentence with, well, at least
don't.
maybe just stop yourself right there.
Instead, may I offer, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. At least is not going to be received the way that you think it's going to be received. Just heads up.
No.
Yeah.
And claiming, well, you're healthy now was like, okay, I'm 2 weeks postpartum. I'm still bleeding. I have stitches. We're still trying to figure out breastfeeding, and like, we're not healthy. So yeah, that first like year was pretty rough for me. I was having blackouts, PTSD blackouts, which we didn't know that's what it was. So I got like a couple MRIs because they actually did find a tumor in my pituitary gland, a non-active tumor, but they had to do multiple MRIs to make sure it was non-active. But at first they were like, well, that's what's causing your blackouts. And eventually when they were like, that's not causing your blackouts, they kind of just dropped the blackouts. They were just like, oh, well, it's just anxiety.
What does a blackout feel like?
Yeah. So it was like, I'd be sitting in my chair, nursing the baby or doing whatever I'm doing. And it would be like the world was closing in.
Like the light was getting dimmer?
Yes. So it would be like, suddenly I could only see out of these 2 tiny little holes in front of me and no peripheral vision. And eventually there would be no vision. I would hear, it would be like everything's echoing in my ears. So it's this deep, deep echo that you feel like maybe you're underwater. And I didn't feel like I could move my body at all. And it brought me back to being in labor and delivery and being in that moment and being so sick. And these were happening, at first it happened like daily for a few weeks. Yeah. And then it happened weekly. And then it went to monthly. And then it went to very rare, periodically, every now and then.
Yeah.
And I was having nightmares. I couldn't sleep. I would lay there and stare at the baby all night. I could not fathom going to sleep because all I could remember was laying in the hospital bed by myself, in my room by myself, and hearing babies cry around me. My coping mechanism became listening to audiobooks because I had to like drown things out. So yeah, that first year was really rough. I ended up going to a church-sponsored support group when my son was about 8 months old, and that really started helping. But there wasn't anything specific for like mom trauma, birth trauma.
Perinatal mental health.
Right. It wasn't specific for perinatal mental health. It was very much, oh, you're codependent. Oh, you have control issues, which I do. But that's not what I was trying to focus on at the time. So that was kind of.
You're like, I have a different pot on the front burner right now. Yeah. And it's like birth and how I'm feeling mentally and emotionally right now. Yeah.
You know, I was doing my best with what I had, and Ginger turned 1 year old. It was great. But then a few months later, we had a bit of a panini. Pandora's box opened. The pandemic.
Oh.
I like to say all the keywords when, Panic at the Disco happened.
Yeah.
Oh,
Panic at the Disco.
Panic at the Disco.
It was a Panic at the Disco.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So the world shut down. And of course my anxiety was like, ha, here you are.
I'm back.
Yeah. So that was totally fun.
Mm-hmm. Not. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So that was my first child. By that point, I was like, I have other things to worry about. I can't think about birth trauma anymore. And I was still having flashbacks, but
And the birth trauma was like, we're not leaving.
Right.
We're not leaving.
Right. And I was like, I'll be able to handle it next time. Bye.
What did it look like for you to seek help and
Yeah.
And finally get it.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't happen until I got pregnant with my second.
Okay.
So I quit my job because teaching in a panini is not very fun.
No. Cheesy.
It's quite
real
cheesy.
cheesy.
Oh yes, it was a mess.
Now I'm hungry for a panini.
Dang it, Brittany.
Teaching in Pandora's box is not fun. I'll switch to Pandora's box.
Okay.
It was not fun. I taught 4 grade levels virtually.
Oh wow.
I had 20 students. It was not fun. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend.
0 stars. Yeah.
I did a good job at it, but not recommended. So I quit my job and had my last period right about then. Right after I had appendicitis and found out that the issues with my uterus didn't just extend to my uterus, it also extended to my intestines. So had my last period, quit my job, and had 81 days of like, okay, what's going on? Had 3 blood tests, like 7 stick tests. Nothing, no positives. I'm like, okie dokie, this is happening again. And all I could think was like, well, I know people have talked about how like getting vaccinated has changed their cycle. So maybe that's it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So I remember that.
Yeah. So I contacted my OB. She hooked me up with an infertility specialist. I met with her in the morning and she's like, you need to go and get one more test just in case. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Okay, doctor lady.
Okay.
She was right.
She was right. I'm the one who dropped the 4-letter word this time. That was
your turn.
Yeah, crap. CRAP. Got it?
Oh, totally. We can go with that, Emily. That was totally the word.
Yes. Yeah.
I laid on the floor and cried. Like, I'm so happy and I'm also terrified. Uh-oh. Like,
yes.
Here we go again. But my husband and I were like, we got this. We got this. We're going to seek help early. We know what to do.
You were the hype people for yourself.
Yeah, we were for 3 whole days.
We need that
Which
hype
I
again.
love. But at the same time, like, I just want to acknowledge that I think part of what's happening is like, because you had not had the opportunity to work through properly with a trained professional, the things that happened and the way that you felt, like you had just, moved it to the back burner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were hyping each other up for a good 3 days. And then my husband cut his thumb off while working. So.
Oh, dang it. Yeah. Don't do that.
It was reattached, guys. It's okay.
Oh. Jeez. You're holding out on us. I can't believe you waited that long to say, but it's okay. It was reattached.
It just looks funny and it feels funny. Okay. But it was the day that the hospital shut down again. So I couldn't go in. So I was sitting in the parking lot, like screaming at nurses on the phone about, coercing my husband or whatever. There was a lot of drama because I was triggered. Because I was in the parking lot seeing that he's like 20 feet from me in the trauma room, but I can't get to him. I can go bang on the window, but like can't get in there.
You're like, excuse me.
Right.
That woman's tapping on the window again.
Yeah, right.
Close the blinds and pretend you don't hear it. That was Emily closing the blinds, listeners.
Yes. Yes, I was providing a visual.
So that was brilliant to like trigger medical trauma. And here we go. Like,
yes.
From then on, month and a half, I don't remember anything. What I do remember, the details I remember are laying on the couch and watching Disney Plus all day with my older son.
Ooh.
Who was...
I mean, that does sound fun, but not with the trauma and the like.
Right. Yes.
Right. Minus the reason you were doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating, wasn't doing anything, just laying on the couch, watching Disney Plus all day, every day, which totally like set my 2.5-year-old off for his own little traumas popping up. And he was all over the place. And obviously he needed more interaction than mommy laying on the couch watching Disney Plus.
Right. And we do talk about Bruno here.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Yes. Thank you. So I called a friend one day. She said, so it sounds like you might need some more help, because I was having suicidal ideation as well. She's like, so I know this place. Actually, my sister-in-law started this place. It's an outpatient program for moms. You should look into it. So I did. And I found out that they also had an inpatient program. And we drove 2.5 hours to Mountain View. And I was hospitalized for a week in the mom's unit, the specialized unit at El Camino Hospital. And I was so scared of like being judged for being hospitalized because I'm supposed to be strong. The shame I felt over having suicidal ideation, like only selfish dummies would think about that. Like, I'm sorry, I was really struggling.
And did you talk about that while you were in there?
Yeah, I did. I actually was there for my birthday. Mm-hmm. And for the majority of my stay there, it was a really wonderful experience where I felt taken care of. But the day of my birthday, they didn't bring me breakfast.
Like an accident?
Well, they brought me a slice of bacon and that was it. And so I cried and I was like, I shouldn't be crying. And we were in our morning support group and I shared about how I shouldn't be upset. Like, I'm a burden on everyone else, even though it's my birthday. And my group was like, excuse me, this is the one time you're allowed to be selfish and completely selfish. You are in the hospital because you haven't been selfish enough.
That is wisdom.
Right. And that was like the day I just like cried and slept all day. And all of my nurses, case manager, doctor, everyone brought me chocolate cake. I think I had like 5 pieces of chocolate cake that day. And it was one of the first days I was eating too. So that was kind of one of those like, I need my food now. I'm hungry.
To quote another Disney movie or to reference another Disney movie, this is why sadness is important. Like in Inside Out, Joy is like trying to just like push sadness out, right? Like, no. But the resolution of the movie doesn't come until sadness gets to sort of like be in the forefront.
Oh, yeah.
You had to like fully embrace and not ignore the feelings.
Yeah. No more back burner.
No. So I ended up being placed into their outpatient program for 12 weeks. So for 8 of those weeks, I was in the partial hospitalization program. So that means that I was there 6 to 8 hours a day, depending on the day, and then going home at night. But I wasn't going home because home was 2.5 hours away. So I was with family friends, worrying a lot because my husband's at home with a 2.5-year-old and I'm pregnant way over here. And then the last month I was on in intensive outpatient programs, which was about 4 hours a day and 4 days a week once I got to PHP. So it was the most healing experience ever to be in that program because I was still experiencing PTSD flashbacks and blackouts. I was still experiencing all this anxiety and the health concerns and the fear and the shame and the guilt through all of it because I was still pregnant. And I had therapists and doctors there to support me at any time. And that was extremely helpful. And it was like going to school again, but for myself, for my mental health. For me, like the most important class that we had each week was based on Brené Brown's class that she sells on shame and guilt. And me being able to process that shame and guilt. Like I should not feel shame over the fact that my birth story didn't go as planned because it wasn't my fault. My body is not my fault. There's nothing I could do to control that. So I had to process a lot of that shame and guilt over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It was not like a one-day process. It was that whole 12 weeks of having to process it over and over.
And kind of reframing your mindset around that experience. And
yes.
Yeah.
When I came home, which was great, I went back to my recovery group that I was in, my support group, which actually really helpful at that point because I knew how to frame what was happening to me. And then I started going to PSI support groups daily.
Oh my gosh, you stole my next question. I was wondering throughout this entire process.
Where does PSI happen?
I know. Did you know about, did we already touch on this? Did you already know about PSI?
No, you're remembering when we recorded last time.
Okay.
I know the answer.
Ooh.
Someone from the inpatient was a PSI person.
Yes.
And they were like,
Okay, I forgot.
You should
what
try
you
this
need to know.
out
I have
when you
amnesia.
get home.
I forgot.
So yeah, I started going every single day because I was like, I can't just leave my like program and like have nothing. So
Yes.
I went to PSI support groups daily and like made friends, and I lost all those connections because we all stopped going, but like I remember specific people and I remember the group leaders, and finally the group leaders was like, hey, Brittany, you're really, really passionate about this. And you keep talking about how you want everyone to have a mom's program, which is what I went to. So maybe you should volunteer with PSI. And I was like, what?
Come again.
I can do that? And so I got connected. It was great. I got connected with Emily. Started doing Climb stuff, and I was pregnant. And she's like, you don't have to do everything, right? And I was like, yes, I do. What are you talking about? So
she was like, stop that.
Someday I will learn to take my own advice. So
awesome. Yeah. So now you're leading a climb, doing all the incredible things. You are on the PSI California State Chapter board.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I'm like the Climb Out of the Darkness liaison for it. So that's really exciting.
State chapters have so many different, like, there are like members at large. There's like, you could be like the treasurer or like the secretary, or you could be someone who wants to do like advocacy stuff. Like, I cannot oversell how many options there are.
That's really exciting. I did end up with preeclampsia with my second, but I was able to advocate for myself, and I had a C-section. And if I had had a C-section 4 years ago, my life would have ended. But I chose the C-section, and it was so beautiful.
Oh.
And so we have this like beautiful memory of C-section, and being able to spend that first hour with my baby and spend 3 days just with the baby in the hospital and no visitors, which was great. I loved that.
No offense, everybody, but it is kind of nice, to just have a little time.
Yes. So this time around has been a lot easier once the baby was born. Once he was out of me and I was able to advocate for myself, like, this baby needs to come out now because I feel like I'm dying again because I have preeclampsia. Like, stop ignoring me. I know what my symptoms are. I look at pictures of myself and I don't look like me. It's kind of gross. I hate it. We have them on the wall and I'm like, ew, let's take those maternity pictures down. They're not cute.
Not good times.
I keep saying I'm healing my inner new mom because that's what I needed. And
yeah.
My big goal this year is to, get at least 10 people at our climb in October and get at least one more counselor certified because we only have 4 in our entire county. So I'm going to put my 2 cents in on the board and help with, like, scholarships and stuff because we need more trained professionals out there.
Yes.
Who understand what's actually happening and the processes that that parents need to go through to be able to heal.
You are nailing it. You are on fire, Brittany.
Yeah, you're like, I'm checking all the boxes.
Don't worry, guys. I got this.
Like, I don't need a committee. I don't need more people on my team. I got it. It's fine. I do want more people on my team, actually, by the way. I do want more people.
Kidding. Come on, everybody. We'll put a link in the show notes to Brittany's climb team. Come on in. The water is warm. It's a good time. I'm trying
to let go of that control, and I am. I do have a couple of people on my team, like the local coordinator for PSI. She's on my team. And so we're getting like she runs her own support group stuff. So we're getting some like discounts out there so that more people can attend
Danny
her.
loves a good support group.
I love a good one.
They're the best.
That's why I like to record so much. It's like a little mini support group right now.
But hey, my climb, Central Valley's climb.
Yeah.
On October 14th, which is a big anniversary for me. For when I was first put on leave while pregnant when I turned 25 for October. Then I was hospitalized in October for my birthday. I was in the hospital. And this is my 30th birthday this year. My birthday is on October 15th.
Yes.
So October 14th, we're not only climbing, but we're celebrating the fact that I've made it 5 years as a mom and 5 years with perinatal mood disorders and anxiety disorders. And I'm still surviving and living. And I'm going to be 30, flirty, and thriving over here.
Oh my gosh. Get out of here. Jeez, just kidding. Don't go anywhere. We love you.
Don't leave.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, that's incredible. We will celebrate with you.
Thanks.
Virtually from up north and out east back east and
Mm-hmm.
all the directions. Brittany, how would you feel about answering some fun little lightning round questions?
Let's go.
Let's do this. Brittany, besides this podcast, what is your favorite podcast or podcasts? If you listen to any.
Or do I listen to any?
Get out of here, Danny.
Do I?
So first off, I have kids, so I have to listen to my podcast with earbuds in.
Relatable.
4-letter words and death and destruction, because true crime, man, and ghosts. So my top two right now are Morbid and Red Handed, and they're like basically the same podcast, but Red Handed, they're British, and Morbid, they are from New England. So
okay, are you a fan of a book in your ear or a book in your hand?
Before kids, it was in my hand. I just finished The 19th Wife, which is historical fiction about Brigham Young.
Okay, cool.
Right.
So I liked it. It was a good book.
Awesome. I like historical fiction. Sweet. Brittany, what's your go-to for a quick mental break?
Taking a walk. We call them sanity walks, especially on nights when my husband's not home. I'm like, all right, y'all are bathed and pajamas are on, but it's not bedtime yet. Get in the stroller. We're going for a sanity walk.
Yes. I like that. That's a great one. What is your best parenting hack?
There's actually two.
Okay.
Throw them in water or go outside. Like shallow water, like a bath or a shower.
Yes.
Yeah, you have that little splash pad.
You have a splash pad. Yeah.
Yes.
Those are fun.
We don't live by Brittany, but we live vicariously with Brittany through her Instagram stories.
Yes.
We love splash pad.
Yeah.
So we're outside on the splash pad a lot, and I'm just sitting in my chair under the umbrella while the kids splash around, because it's safe enough for a not walking 14-month-old and a wackadoodle 4-year-old.
A couple of our guests have shared the same thing. Just add water is their mantra if things are just going south.
Yes. I learned that in I was at like a mommy and me class with my first, went every week because anxiety. And that was one of the things they always said, just jump in the shower, throw them in the bath, like go outside. And so my kids have learned to love showers now.
Yeah. Yep. Kind of change that sensory experience, and it kind of can like shift the vibe. What is one way that you'll give yourself a little radical love today, besides hanging out with us?
I know, right?
I'm just kidding. That could be it.
So what will I actually do? I'll take a shower.
Good. That can change your mindset. Like, oh man.
Oh, it's a shower day. I'll shower today. I'm a mom, so no, I don't shower every day. Sorry.
No, let's keep it real. It doesn't happen every day.
No.
Emily, would you like to ask your very favorite question?
I would, because I am still striving to drink more water myself. So I am always asking, how do you take your water?
Yeah. Okay. I knew you were going to ask this. Are you on Water Talk, Emily?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Water
TikTok.
Talk?
Look up Water Talk on TikTok.
Oh my.
They talk about like how they like their water.
Oh yeah.
We didn't invent this.
No.
Sorry, Danny.
You know what? That's okay. I dig it. Okay. So I struggle with my water intake too. So I do a lot of like additions to my water.
Yeah.
Like coffee beans or
ground coffee.
Yes, I have my tea here and I have my liquid IV here. And then I found the other electrolyte that like comes in like a squeezy bottle and there's no dye. And straws, amazing. So with the straw.
I was just going to ask about the straws.
Oh my gosh. Brittany is showing us some really cute like straw caps. It's like a little bear sitting on the top of her straw. That's like a cap.
Because I have a baby who likes to it. And I'm like, I don't want your grimy little fingers on my straw.
On this thing that my mouth is going to touch. Thank you. Oh, that's smart.
Yep. And no ice. I don't like ice.
Oh, interesting.
Unless
we're taking a turn that I didn't expect.
I do put it in my tea because I make hot tea and pour it over ice, but that melts. So, but I don't like ice. It's weird.
Brittany, if our listeners are interested in getting in touch with you, maybe they would like to join your climb team or connect with you.
Want to know more about the board?
Yeah, about things happening in California. What's the best way for people to get connected with you?
So I'm B Welch at PSI-CA Chapter.com if you need to talk about the chapter. And you can contact me and, get your voice in there
Awesome.
on that.
Yeah.
Like PSI as a member, because then, you get more of a say in there too. Like, what are we going to do with our funds and come to our big chapter meeting? I don't know when it is, but I'm excited. We need more survivors in here because it's the survivors' voices that need to be heard a lot. So survivors, get in there. Come join me.
You heard her,
love it.
everybody.
Oh, yeah. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I am at COTD_Team Central Valley. That is me and my team. And if you're in the area, we do a lot of stuff. And by we, I mean me. A lot of stuff like out and about. And I have had so far in the little over a year of doing this, I've had one person show up to my events that happen at least monthly.
Yeah, you've done Froyo fundraiser nights and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so we actually have Froyo fundraiser coming up next Tuesday. So look on there for the flyer and go to Yogurt Mill because we love Yogurt Mill. We're going to a splash pad on June 8th. We're taking a field trip up to Stockton to this place called Pixie Woods in July. Come join us. These are fun things. Even if you
what
just
is
have
Pixie Woods?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So it's this gated in place that's just filled with playgrounds.
Okay.
Clean playgrounds with shades over the top, and they're all themed.
So it's a parent's dream is what you're saying.
Yes. They have a splash pad. They have a train and a boat and a merry-go-round.
My goodness.
So it's just really great for especially the older kids. But if you have a baby, come too, because I'll be there. And
Pixie Woods, Northern California, right? In Stockton. Okay. I'll be right there. I'm leaving now. I might be there in time.
Right? You're going to come with us.
You'll be there by July.
Right. But come see me at the Climb on October 14th. And I do have a location now, finally. It'll be at Downey Park. I'm going to go chalk up a trail and we need those tables. Yeah, great. I'm excited.
Well, thanks so much for hopping on the pod with us again, Brittany. Yeah. I think we've done it. We all have had an hour of a quiet house, and we've gotten to sit with each other and hear all about your experience, which we're so, so thankful for you, feeling like you were wanting to share that with people and talking about the cool things that you're doing to support folks in the perinatal period. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the I Am One podcast. Check out today's show notes where we'll drop links to all the important things that we mentioned in this episode. Please consider sharing about our show on social media and following and rating our show wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. It only takes a minute of your time and, that'll help with our collective mission of bringing resources and local support to folks worldwide. From everyone here at PSI, thanks again for listening.